We've all looked up at the moon at some point and wondered what it would be like if we had two moons in the sky. And since we're clearly not getting any answers from up there, let's explore this question ourselves. First, we need to figure out where this second moon would sit in the sky. The moon's orbit is tilted almost 23 degrees relative to Earth's orbit around the sun. This means that for about half of the year, we wouldn't see the moon at all, because it would be on the same side of the Earth as the sun. So we'd only ever see it in the southern hemisphere. So our second moon would have to orbit the Earth in this top half of the sky, opposite to the current moon. But how far away would it need to be to stay in orbit without crashing into us? Well, the distance between the sun and Earth varies as the Earth moves around the sun in its orbit. So the furthest the second moon could be away from Earth is the furthest the sun gets. At its furthest point, the sun is about 150 million kilometers from Earth. So that's where our second moon would need to start its orbit. This means there are three possible scenarios for what would happen when the two moons get too close to each other. If they were close enough, they might gravitationally attract each other and crash into one another. They might both continue to orbit the Earth, or they might form a sort of bigger orbit around a point between them. Okay, let's take the first scenario. What would happen if our two moons were close enough to gravitationally attract each other? Well, they might spiral inwards towards each other until they eventually merge, or they could exchange so much energy with each other that their orbits become unstable and they both fly off into outer space. In either case, these scenarios would probably cause some chaos here on Earth in the form of massive earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and tsunamis. So yeah, definitely don't want that. Let's try for a slightly less destructive outcome. How would things change if the two moons were far enough apart to avoid crashing into each other? Well, first of all, we'd experience two sets of tides. Each moon would have its own tidal bulges on the near side of the Earth, and so we'd have high tide twice a day instead of once. These extra tides could be pretty extreme. Having two moons would increase the tidal range by about 20%. That's because the gravitational pull of an object depends on its mass and the distance between the centers of the two objects. So the tidal bulge would be caused by both moons pulling on the water on either side of the planet, stretching it and increasing the range between low tide and high tide. Not only that, but the two moons would also make the ocean water circulate in different directions, depending on which one was closer to a particular location. And weirdly enough, the place where the moons line up would be the calmest. Okay, and what would the nights be like? Well, having two moons would mean that our nights would be about 30 minutes longer. That's because the moon rotates the Earth roughly every 27 days. And so having a second moon that takes another 27 days to rotate the Earth would lengthen our night by 30 minutes. But wait, that means that during the 6 months when the moons are on the same side of the Earth, the night would be 6 months long with only 6 hours of daylight a day. That would disrupt our sleep cycles and throw our circadian rhythm out the window. And even worse, the poles would experience a whole year of continuous darkness and never see the sun again. And then there's the light pollution. With two moons in the sky, the night sky would be twice as bright, which would impact stargazing and astronomical research. And if that wasn't enough, the two moons would also reflect different amounts of sunlight, causing the brightness of the night sky to vary. So what about the third scenario, the one where the moons orbit around a point between them? Would that be any better? Well, possibly. In this case, the moons would act together as a single mass when it comes to the gravitational pull on the tides, meaning we would still only have one set of tides a day. But then the moons would rotate the Earth at their own individual rates, creating a sort of complex system of multiple high tides and low tides throughout the day. Plus, the length of day and night would vary throughout the year as the moons lined up with the sun. Having two moons might sound like a fun idea, but I think we're going to have to stick with just the one. What about you? Do you think having two moons would be more Scooby-Doo or Nightmare on Elm Street? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. parallelish where imagination bends reality. I'm Nova, your guide through the unknown. Want to explore more timelines? Tap the playlist above and keep diving into the what-ifs. Until next time, stay curious.